Be honest. You're only filming this right now because I just said we'd split a chocolate you like.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you don't want to talk to these lovely people about the series we've been binge watching?
Yeah.
No, you're just doing this because I've offered you a twirl.
I'm doing it for the money.
What money?
You said you'd pay me, right?
In kind? So pay you in
That
kind,
doesn't
sir.
mean money?
Should we say hello?
I guess.
Hi, everybody!
Hi.
Sorry, just get the dog to... Here you go, sweet pea. Just shuffle along so I can sit down too. Welcome back to Doctor Who Review, a vidcast of sorts. I'm Chris.
I'm not Chris.
And we are continuing into the modern day of the show in our marathon. We have reached Series 3, The Proper, after having watched The Runaway Bride.
Yeah.
We're watching it, for those who are curious, because obviously people know, like, there's multiple versions of all this. Like, we're watching the Blu-ray, the Steelbook edition, but considering it's the start of the series, it seemed fair to crack out the DVD box set. This is my copy, and you can tell because the sticker on the top has been gently blue-tacked back into place on one side, because it started to peel off, and I was really annoyed about it.
Oh
no! But yeah.
He's a cutie, isn't he? Yeah.
Oh, David Tennant. Yes, he is. Bless him. Basic premise of the show, in case you're wondering, because this is another jumping on point. We be a married couple, and a few years ago, not Chris over here, said, let's watch Doctor Who from the beginning. The very beginning. And it's been multiple years. We're recording this in March of 2021. We're presuming that there'll be an Earth for this to go out to in late 2021. So let me know in the comments how you survived the ongoing apocalypse.
Let us know if the apocalypse happened or no.
Well, hang on, if it happened, how do they type in comments?
They could be mutant hands.
Just hands
Yeah.
with Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Hands with no eyes but Wi-Fi?
5G.
Oh, is that what it does to you? Is it turns you into a sentient hand
No.
wandering the...
No, it doesn't do
The
anything
wreckage.
to you, because that's not a thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
yes.
There are bigger threats out there. Forget 5G masts turning the frickin' frogs gay. No, we've got hospitals being zapped up to the moon.
We have.
The first episode, Series 3.
Oh, in Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Smith and Jones. What's Smith and Jones about, sweet lady?
Well, we're following Martha Jones as she goes on her rounds as she's becoming a doctor. And she sees a crazy man bumps into her in the street and takes his tie off randomly. And she's like,
Like so. Yeah.
Okay. And then she gets into the hospital doing the rounds, and there's a strange man in one of the beds who.
It's clearly the bloke from that morning.
Yeah, and he's just like, that's not me. And things start to happen in the hospital, like.
Well, specifically, there's a couple of couriers walking around.
Yeah, in the...
Like motorcycle couriers.
Yeah, in like full-on leathers, helmets. A bit like the Stig, but all in black. If anybody knows what the Stig is.
Yeah.
Well,
I think at the time...
Is that still a thing?
I don't know if the Stig is still in Top Gear, but in the current iteration, but yeah, at the time there was a lot of jokes about like, oh, the Stig's evil and he's in Doctor Who!
Doctor
Who! And then the rain starts going upwards.
Yeah, there's a big storm.
Because that's the other important thing is it's a brother's 21st that night.
Did you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, but this is about setting up the stakes, isn't it?
Yeah, a
It's a
brother's
brother
having
Leo's 21st.
You go for it.
No, go on.
No,
come on.
it's a brother Leo's
Yep.
21st birthday.
Yeah.
And she's the kind of middleman because her parents are divorced. And he wants to bring his girlfriend, and she's like, oh no, she's a home wrecker. And so she's in between everybody trying to sort everything out.
Sister Tish is like sort of part of the problem. All of her family are kind of they're the most, aren't they? They're the absolute most. And Martha's the rod holding everyone together and keeping everything organised as best she can.
Yeah.
Whilst trying to get her doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she's. Essentially, Martha Jones is a frickin' superwoman trying to just get by on sheer will. And it's when her sister Tish notices the rain going upwards.
She's called her on a break.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, it's chucking it down here. And Tish is walking up like, oh, it's not here. And I can see the hospital from where I am. Oh my god, it's only over the hospital. Also, the rain is going up.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what? And then there's a big earthquake that they think is an earthquake. And it turns out that the hospital was, like, transported onto the moon. You can take it.
No, that's pretty bob on. It gets like sort of I can't really call it now. It's not a rain scoop, but the idea is that it's an atmospheric thing that's pulled it to the moon and planted it there. Because the reason this strange man's in the hospital is he's investigating odd occurrences, and the reason why the hospital's on the moon is because a big bunch of intergalactic police for hire are investigating a fugitive, an alien fugitive in this hospital. The Judoon! Basically space bouncers.
Yeah.
They're a security detail hired by other people. But the Judoon have no jurisdiction on Earth. They're not meant to be there. And this is, we're in marathon territory, but looking forward, it's interesting the ways the Judoon find of getting around this. Like in this instance, they just take the hospital. They just take it, put it on the moon, put it in a state where everyone can survive, but the oxygen's limited within the field it's in. The Judoon arrive and begin cataloguing everybody. And it's because there's an alien loose. There's a creature known as the Plasmavore. Dear old Florence Finnegan, played by Anne Reid. Anne Reid, who's bloody brilliant.
Yeah,
she's always great, but she's great at this because it's the right... It's sort of like a Cassandra level of series opener baddie like last series. It's the right level of threat and camp. Like, it's just sort of what you need. It's a kind of fun villain.
Yeah.
That's will give people nightmares.
But it's ridiculously terrifying.
No, that's the thing. It's terrifying, but it's also one of the least frightening baddies on the surface.
Exactly, yeah.
Essentially, if you were a little kid who say if your grandparents lived in like assisted living or care home or whatever, and they'd be like, when you're very little, sometimes you'll see when you see your grandparents, you're absolutely delighted to see them, but there might be just sort of one older person there or someone else you'd see that'd spook you, just capture your imagination and really kind of unnerve you in some way. The older you get, the more you realise that was kind of harsh of me as a kid. I was a bit of a dick there, wasn't I?
Yeah, I used to think that about my grandparents. No, joking.
No, but you know what I mean?
My grandparents' church, there was people that were like...
Yeah, and I think that any little kids watching this episode who had that kind of setup, they'd be extra terrified that the older person they're frightened of was going to drink their blood through a tiny plastic straw. Which, can we take a moment to appreciate? She does that in all sincerity.
Yep.
And it's flipping genius because it's like, that shouldn't work. Oh, it doesn't work. But they're going for it. Sure.
Also...
Okay, easy cosplay.
What a waste
Get a nightie,
plastic,
get a cardigan,
Granny.
Get one straw. Well, it's only one. She's reusing it.
Get your recyclable paper straws.
To be fair, it was 2007 / set in 2008, so not as big, really. Not as big then. Also, she's a vampire criminal.
She's a criminal.
She's a criminal because we find out later that she killed like a princess. She's wanted for the murder of a royal, which is sort of like Captain John Hart from Torchwood. It's a similar kind of thing.
I would say...
Just killed a royal, legged it, and now there are people after her for it.
I'd say that's pretty bad, that.
Really?
Say I wouldn't recommend...
Killing a royal and drinking their blood.
Don't do it.
So, you've got a fugitive, you've got space police, and the Doctor also there, but he's sort of walked
the Doctor is also
but he's
there.
kind of walked into a trap because he's there to investigate her, or figure out who or what this could be, and her slabs, her minions, which are the motorcycle couriers, made of pure leather.
They would really struggle.
Someone's got one hell of a fetish. A line said by the Doctor in Doctor Who. Love it. So, you've got that. Hello, dog's here in case anyone's confused.
Sorry.
Woo. So...
What the hell was that?
Woo. So, yeah, now you've got the Judoon who are just explicitly looking for an alien amongst humans. And they're doing a scan for non-human life.
Yeah, to figure out who this person is, because they've not got a visual on them.
So it's a race against time to see who do they get first, the Doctor or the Plasmavore. Because whoever they get first, they're then going to be like, right, job done.
But wouldn't they know when they scan the Doctor that he's not a plasma ball?
They're not really scanning. They're scanning for non-human life.
So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, because the way they because the way they do. Right, let's talk about the Jadoon. They are one of my favourite additions to the Doctor Who canon. I love them. I absolutely adore them because they're such a simple idea and a really striking visual. They look like they've leapt out of a comic book. You know what I mean? They look like a comic book character, like a giant leather and straps and all this sort of, like we were saying, New Rocks must have had a field day selling them 20 odd pairs for the production because the boots are just these massive boots. They're just like body armour and leather and straps and handguns, and then just the head of a rhino sticking out the top. Like, it's the most X-Men looking thing I've ever seen in Doctor Who. And it's kind of invoking the Sontaran's design a tiny bit. Like, the helmets look good on their own, but when the captain takes his helmet off and you see like this magnificent piece of animatronic puppetry, it's like, yes, you guys belong here. You are great. And then scanning the guy's voice. It was like, is it Earth language? It was language assimilated. Earth English. And then they just start. They scan everyone, and then put a little, like bouncers, put a little Sharpie marker on the back of their hands to show that they've been scanned as human.
And they squeak for no reason.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so good. I think the student doctor is Oliver, played by Ben Wrighton. He's great. He will pop up one more time next series.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
More of that later, as the same character.
Oh.
Yes. More of that later. All right, it's Gexy. But it's a great premise because it is that whole thing of they've got to find a way to out her to they've got to find her and identify her, and then out her to the Jadoon before it's too late. And then you have the extra problem of at the end, the Jadoon don't give a crap that the oxygen's running out. They got the job done. There's some great stuff, like she turns an X-ray machine into essentially a magnetic bomb that's going to blow up the moon, blow up the moon and half of the Earth, just the half facing the moon. Called it My Little Gift. It's like, oh, what a get!
What a witch!
What an absolute!
What a woman!
Roy Marsden, who I mostly remember from, is it Heartbeat? Was he in Heartbeat? I don't know. He was one of those actors who popped up in a lot of stuff. I recognised him quite a bit. But I'm going to have to scroll through to find out because it's going to drive me nuts. Oh, he's one of the Driscoll brothers in Only Fools. He's one of those actors who pops up in a lot of stuff. He's Mr. Stoker, like the teacher of the students, and he's like the right level of nasty.
Oh, yeah.
And then just before he gets killed, you learn about his daughter doing her exams, who he's never going to see again. You're like, oh my god, he's going to die, isn't he?
He was going to retire to Florida.
He bloody was! You know what Florida used to be full of? Orange groves. I'm going to give you a piece of orange chocolate.
You don't have to share it.
You like it, and I don't know if I'm going to like it, so
woohoo! What if you love
it? My little gift. We're going to the shop tomorrow, aren't we? From where you got them, so. Oh, that's nice.
Yum. Not too orangey.
The Jadoon stuff sold a lot in the toys when this came out.
Because they look so cool.
They had the helmet, and they had the scanner, and you could write stuff in ghost ink.
I remember
with
that.
one end and light it up with the other end, like the Series 1 Sonic Screwdriver toy. David's a lot of fun in this. Very silly. His hair gel is industrial strength. My God, when he's running his hands through his hair, it stays spiky and cartoony. Bigger, but never rubbish.
Yeah.
I think this series is where he hits peak hair.
It's funny because he messes it up a few times in the show, and it's like, cute.
So it's good. The blue suit makes its debut. By the end,
do you like the blue suit?
I like the blue. I think it's a good call to have some alternatives.
Yeah.
But that cartoon element's still there, i.e., like a lot of John's costumes, it's the same costume but different colours and different colours and different materials.
Mm.
Like the most John's ever changed in shape really was sometimes the cravat tie was a bow tie, and that was it. The rest of it was still nice shirt, nice jacket, sometimes a cape, sometimes gloves. Like it had the same basic shape pretty much.
Yeah.
Like Tom's changes a lot, and that's fine because he's sort of the longest living version of the character, and that sort of makes sense for his outfit to change. But then, as much as I have issues with sort of like the first McCoy outfit and Davison's outfit, and not Collins, go back and watch our reviews, folks.
Not Collins.
Bloody love Collins. Like I kind of like the fact that Colin gets it and Sylvester gets it, and David now gets it. It's the same outfit in different colour palettes.
Yeah,
and that's kind of. It works for me.
Yeah.
Series 2, there's a lot of experimentation. T-shirt with a shirt, and then another bloody shirt and the jacket. You know, this tie, that tie and shirt combo. Whereas at this point they've gone, no, it's going to be 2 suits. One's brown, one's blue. Two suits. So...
You're a silly man.
To our younger viewers, I'm not going to start. He's a lot of fun in this. The highlight of this first episode is Martha.
Yeah.
Because they treat this like Rose. It is Martha's episode. She's our POV character.
Yeah.
They just know this time that the viewers know who the Doctor is. So when he pops up, like so, in the street, and then in the bed later as patient John Smith, it's relying on us knowing that and having fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
And being, but I don't know about you. The vibe I got was like, oh my god, I can't wait for her to meet him properly. Like you're just waiting for it to happen because you're like, she's so interesting, and it's like I cannot wait for her to finally talk to him proper.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting for them. You're waiting for them to meet because you're meeting this newbie and you know him, and yeah, it's so well handled. I
like the way they do that.
Yeah,
I really do.
Martha is absolutely a match for him in this story. Like, she adapts so quickly to everything. She comes up with solutions to stuff sometimes before he does. And you can see him kind of testing her a bit as well. You know what I mean? Where he's like...
Well, he's a bit of a douche, isn't he, really? Because
not in this first story.
Because we know...
going forward, yeah, absolutely.
He compares her to Rose, and it's like...
Not that you're replacing her! He says that in this one. But then after that... Well, we'll get to that, but...
Yeah.
In this one, you can see that he's completely enamoured by just how up for it she is.
Yeah. Because
this is a Doctor who's lived. This is a Doctor who's lived, and technically for the first time since the Time War, you can see he's looking for a companion.
Yeah.
Like he's looking to meet someone to travel with. He asks Donna at the end of Runaway Bride, but she's not interested. But here he's like, halfway through this episode that he's totally going to ask her to travel with him at the end.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, shine all the publicity.
In the story is so... But I buy it. I completely buy it.
I personally...
Go on. No,
go on. I'm going off on a different thing, so you finish what you're saying.
And it's lovely that he comes back for her that night after Leo's 25th. Like, he makes sure that she gets through the day and all that stuff. He avoids the press and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes back in the other suit to start the time travel stuff. Her introduction to the TARDIS is bloody wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that she confronts him on calling himself the Doctor. She's like, no, as far as I'm concerned, you've got to earn that title.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, well done.
Well done, madam, well done.
I do love that. I do love the initial setup of as a thank you for saving my life, because she did. She saved his life.
She did.
Well, thank you for saving my life. I'm taking on a trip. Just a little, because you can see that she's swamped by everything. Mm. And he's like, "Come on, I'll take you on a trip.
I'll take you on a jaunt."
Sorry, go on. Before we move on to the Shakespeare Code,
I've just realised, one of my criticisms of the earlier series was that you don't connect with the companion because you don't know them. For example, oh crap! I forgot his name.
Ah!
I want to say Astrid. It's not Astrid. Adric.
You know he lost his brother, and you know he's a maths genius,
and he crept
that's
into
where
the
it
TARDIS
ends.
and is very annoying. And then the other guy, Flukson.
What?
The gangly ginger one.
Turlo. We know he's an alien.
We know he's in.
He's stuck on Earth. And then the Black Guardian's like, right, I'm going to give you a way out. This doctor's going to show up. If you kill him, I'll give you everything you wanted and your freedom. But what you're saying is after that, there's kind of nothing about who he is until his last one, Planet of Fire, where suddenly you're like, oh, this is interesting.
And then,
he's gone.
Back.
Yeah.
So
there's a bit of a blank slate element.
When they do this, it's really good because you make a proper connection with them. You see what they're like without the Doctor.
And we get to meet another family, like you said. Francine Jones, daughter Tish, son Leo, ex-husband Clive, and his Mrs. Annalise, which I didn't realise was one solid name.
What did you think it was? Anna?
I thought it was Annalise. Yeah, like Annalise or Annalise.
Annalise.
I think Smith and Jones is one of the stronger openers of the modern run. On the surface, it seems quite silly. Space rhinos, old woman with a straw sucking blood. You know, Jadoon platoon upon the moon.
When you say it like that.
Playing a bassoon. But in front of a saloon.
In
a room.
The old last
saloon. It seems really silly on the surface, but it's a great introduction, and it's also a really good jumping on point for the show.
Yeah.
I think this is a good first episode for people.
Yeah.
Like, if they want to point, it's like, I don't want to watch all of it. It's like, what? I want to watch a bit of it. What would be fun? You could go, watch Series 3. Because the exposition about the Doctor that we learn over this next episode and the one after still builds up that mystery to new viewers of who he is and where he came from and what that means.
Yeah.
You get a reiteration that's repackaged quite nicely. I like Smith and Jones a lot. How about you?
I was a bit trepidatious going into it, as some people might know from watching the previous video. I really enjoyed it.
Why were you trepidatious?
Because I don't like Martha.
From
my previous
watching it,
watch, yeah.
Yeah. And why don't you like Martha?
I thought she was whiny. I thought she was clingy, clammy. No, not clammy.
That's an in-joke that no one's going to understand.
Sorry. I just thought she was really annoying. But then watching this, there are little things about her that annoy me.
Yeah, I think Freema Rajaman's a fantastic performer, but there's some delivery with Martha that makes me go like, oh, really? But I'm more forgiving of it over time because I'm kind of paying more attention to what she's doing behind the eyes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on. Watching it this time, this is the first time you've watched Smith and Jones in probably 9 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
How did you find her this time?
Sorry, something
With
made a strange sound.
Sounds like an elephant.
I thought she was charming.
Yeah.
I really did.
Which leads into the Shakespeare Code. Which is our first historical for a bit. The Doctor basically goes to... Well, I mean, let's pinpoint the exact year. Shall the year is... Oh, yeah. 1599 in Southwark, near the Globe Theatre, during the production of Love's Labour's Lost, in which, at this point, Shakespeare is in residence at the Globe in London. And basically the Doctor's like, hey, as a thank you, I'm going to go and take you to see a Shakespeare play in the time of the height of his career, with him there. This should be fun. And when Martha starts to chant, she's like, he's here. She's like, author! Is that what something people say? And then they'll start chanting it.
Well, do now.
She looks so chuffed. It's adorable. And the way the Doctor explains time travel to her, she's like, am I not going to sort of cause a ruckus? She's like, she says, like, black people weren't exactly walking around.
Not going to be taken into slavery.
Yeah, and it's just like, and he sort of was like, no, he's like, just strut around like you own the place. Honestly, it works for me. And then there's this slight allusion, and historical scholars can let me know more on whether or not there is accuracy to this, but I prefer the route they take. If it is inaccurate, I don't care.
Also, historical scholars, if you call yourself a historical scholar, please get in touch, because that's awesome.
But like the way he makes a point saying like, I think you'll find that like this time is not that dissimilar from yours, and there's a few jokes made about like global warming and plumbing and everything. But when he first says that, there are some extras in the foreground who are clearly not white. So it's sort of subtly saying like, yeah, anyone who's got a problem with that sort of stuff in terms of your TV, shut up, we're doing this, go away. And they've stuck to that ever since, which I quite like.
Do you think that people that genuinely thought that?
There are people who get really pissy when shows set at certain periods in history in certain countries show anyone who's not white. Because they're like, well, that's not correct. And it's like, right, well, A, were you there? And B, maybe you don't think it's correct because you've not seen many shows doing it before.
You're not watching a documentary.
Yeah, now, again, historical scholars, let me know if it was... I'm genuinely just curious if it was less likely or whether or not the show's getting it right on. But either way, I like the fact that it does what it does and it does it going forward. But I also love that Martha, as someone from the 21st century, would acknowledge, like, hang on.
I like...
Like, am I in danger here? Like, by doing that? And the Doctor makes that point of being like, no, just walk around like you own the place.
I think it's something that they needed to acknowledge, and they did it so well.
Yeah. And again, it's down to Freeman's delivery and David's delivery as well. And also we get lots of jokes throughout it from Dean Lennox Kelly, who plays a bloody brilliant William Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Like, we're going for kind of... It's purposely portrayed to be a bit more like... This is the Shakespeare in love kind of Shakespeare. Like, this is the top... This is a superstar writer, top of his career... Like, he's the Elizabethan equivalent of a rock star, essentially. Like, that's who he is, so he's played that way.
Yeah.
Like, he plays it like a smug intellectual who knows that he's, like... He could pull any woman he wants at this point because it's like, everybody knows who I am. And it's like, don't you have a wife in the country? And he's like, well, while I'm in the city. And it's like, oh, no, Willie, no!
It's the fact that when he first
comes on the stage, and the Doctor's like, this is the man who creates creates words and new languages, and we're going to hear him speak. And what's the first thing that he says to the crowd?
He goes, oh, shut your big fat mouths. It's like, okay. Not quite a soliloquy, but okay.
But he constantly sort of makes social and racial faux pas around Martha that are not meant as offence or with ill will at all. But it is that kind of... This is them playing on the whole, alright, okay, a bit weird, I'm glad we've moved on from this, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But again, like, he's genuinely smitten. At first it's just like he finds her hot, and then by the end of the story he's like, do you want to, like, maybe stick around? And then and then he's like, a sonnet composed just for you. And he just recited another one of his works. And it's just like, you smarmy, slimy little... But they also make a really good point of showing that this was a very intelligent man.
Yeah.
The Doctor is in genuine awe of Shakespeare. He doesn't look down on him. He's like, this man was amazing. Like, he was incredible. And just little things they do to show that. Like, he's like, I'm Sir Doctor of TARDIS, whatever, and this is, my friend Martha Jones from Fredonia. Bloody Marx Brothers reference. I think it's Duck Suit. And it's the fact that Shakespeare's like, that piece of paper's blank.
Yeah.
So it's like you show me a blank piece of paper.
And Martha's like, no, it says there that it's whatever.
And the Doctor's just like, oh, that's brilliant. Oh, that is brilliant. It's just confirmation that, like, yeah, this is a very intelligent guy. But it's not just a jolly to go and see some Shakespeare. The next day, he's premiering Love's Labour's Won, the fabled lost Shakespeare play, which is noted in his, his actual works and stuff found in the years since. Like, yeah, this was something that he either wrote or was going to write. A sequel to Love's Labour's Lost. And the whole premise of this episode is basically, so there's this missing Shakespeare play. What happened with that? So we have Christina Cole playing Lilith. who's bloody great.
Yeah.
She's really, really good. She's
She's
going
really
for
beautiful
it.
as well.
She's very kind of strikingly sort of. How to describe it? She's kind of like Lala Ward. It's that sort of very striking yet mousy look.
Yeah.
So she blends in perfectly as like the maid in the inn when she's spying. And then when you see her like robing it up, being all witchy and evil, you're like, no, yeah, you're the villain. You're absolutely the villain here. And she hams it.
Yeah.
She doesn't ham it as much as her two co-stars, but you can't blame them. So yeah, there are witches. There are witches who are kind of voodooing this plane to existence on a specific day, at a specific time, at a specific point. And essentially what we get is space witches who use words to create things. Like, it's spells. No, it's a sequence of words and numbers said in the right way at the right time in the right place to take advantage of the makeup of the universe.
Yeah.
Which is a great idea for a story involving Shakespeare. Like, the man who invented, like, words that are now used in the common lexicon and you know, was, like, the wordsmith of his day. Oh, yeah. Shakespeare walks into a pub and the owner says, "Oh, you're a bard." Bless her when she tells him that. But yeah.
But the witches kind of, they get to a point because he's got to finish this play overnight, essentially.
Because it has to be ready for that night, that day.
It has to be that day, yeah. And they kind of enchant him, don't they?
There's a lot of voodoo in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like, a guy gets drowned from the inside out because his doll gets
grim.
drowned, and then they sort of like blunt trauma to his heart to kill him. Like the doctor, she takes one of his hearts out, not realizing he has two. Some good stuff, and we learn about the globe. The reason why it's got 14 sides, which the doctor gets really sort of bugged about. He's like, I'm trying to figure out, is because the architect is Peter Street, who was indeed a real man. Did an awful lot of building back then.
Well, if you think about it, it wouldn't have taken as long because it was made out of wood.
Billy boy. So Peter Street, played by Matt King, Super Hands himself. So we've had two Peep Show alumni in this so far: Patterson Joseph and Matt King. We'll tick more off later. So get your bingo sheet out, guys. Make sure you've got your Mitchell Webb and Olivia Colman squares ready, because you will tick them all off.
Is Olivia Colman in it?
Olivia Colman's in Doctor Who. She is.
She's in the Matt Smith's first story.
11th Hour, yeah. But yeah, so they go to see Peter Street in the asylum, and you realise that he built the globe the way he did because they've been there for a while. They've been influencing things for a while. Lilith and her sort of witchy compatriots, Doomfinger and Bloodtide.
Wow.
The greatest names in this show since the Time Warriors, Bloodaxe and Irongron. But Doomfinger and Bloodtide and Lilith are from a species called Carrionite who want to summon like their kind who are trapped within this globe. Because you get told the Eternals cast them out. So we're talking like an old ass species that have been without a home for a while, which is a running theme in the modern series. Yeah, and they want to take Earth. But yeah, so the words are used to save the day. The scene where the guys are rehearsing Love's Labour's one, reading the last page that makes no sense, and they sort of summon a Carrionite very briefly before it fades away, and they're like, we can't tell anyone because they'll put us in the loony bin. Like,
what the heck? What the hex?
Yeah, that stuff's great. The rhyming stuff is brilliant. The jailer's a lot of fun. Because that sequence is obviously quite harrowing, but he clearly just sort of acts like it's, like he's doing a shift in Greg's. I really enjoy the story. It's not a lot of people's favourite nowadays because of a couple of behind the scenes contributions.
Really?
Yeah, the writer has shared some pretty abhorrent views on certain communities online.
Oh, for God's sake.
And of course,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Another writer is mentioned in this a few times who also has abhorrent views around a certain community online, and it's
I forgot you mentioned it.
it's just sort of like, oh, really? Okay, so I could understand if this isn't one that a lot of people revisit, but if you can watch it in isolation, if you can part from that and enjoy it for Freema and David and Dean Lennox Kelly's performances and everything, this is a really, really fun historical.
It is.
Made extra fun by just the little tag at the end of Queen Elizabeth rocking up and declaring the Doctor her sworn enemy, and an arrow being fired at the TARDIS, and they're fleeing, and him having no idea why she's mad at him, but it's going to be fun finding out, isn't it? I don't know if it necessarily makes sense, but they do get around to explaining it, kind of. In a way. I like the Shakespeare Code a lot.
Me too.
And it starts something which I think you're noticing more now. Martha's story throughout that episode.
Yeah.
She thinks she's on a space date with a lovely action hero who they've saved each other's lives, and he's a bit handsome, isn't he? And isn't this all lovely? And
even though he keeps saying because we didn't mention that he had to kiss Martha in the
part one
the last one.
To basically leave enough alien trace on her that when the Jadoon scanned her, the machinery would be confused and they'd need to clarify it.
Yeah.
And it bought him time to get the villain into a place where she was doomed and drank his blood, and then she got scanned. She registered as alien and la la la.
And so he was like, this means nothing.
Yeah, she's really swept away by it. And then at the end she's like, well, if you're going to wear a suit that tight and all this, that, he's like, right, stop it. It's not a date. She's like, okay, fair enough. But here they have to share a bed, and you can see she's definitely not trying anything, but she's sort of going, hey, is this a bit romantic, isn't it? A little bit snug? And he's not even registering. And then the whole thing of if Rose was here, she'd know what to do. It's like, oh, dude, are you endearing more to her now you're spotting this stuff?
Well, no, because that was obvious when I first watched it as well.
Yeah.
It's just more heartbreaking.
Yeah. And it leads into episode 3 as well. Gridlock! Our return to New Earth. New Earth. And New York. But it's not... well, that's one episode it's a sequel to. What happens in Gridlock, View?
Martha's... the doctor's going to drop... Oh, sorry. The doctor's going to drop Martha off, and she's like, what the heck? No, I want to keep going. And I was like, no, I said once.
Things went to crap. Show me something not horrible. And he's like, all right,
okay, let's go to
New Earth.
New Earth. And he drops that, him and Rose had been there. He'd not been there since he went with Rose, and she's like, oh, you're taking me away everywhere you took her. And he's like...
Is there a problem with that? Because he genuinely doesn't see... Because again, it's the version of him that she is sort of projecting is entirely in her head.
Yeah.
But all the same, he's ignorant of it, of her advances in a way where you're like, okay, this isn't going to end well, and we'll get to all that later because it's written and done so so freaking beautifully. Full on F-bomb there.
Whoops.
Sorry everyone, I'll put warning in the description. But yeah, so...
He's just really passionate.
I am! I love the way the series and their character arc is written out. But aside from that, they end up in the Undercity of New York.
Yeah, and it's completely different from what
from apple grass and skyscrapers.
And Martha's just like, oh, great, cool. This is fine.
Well, he's like, come on, this is where the action is. And that's when they realise there's no one there, except for street vendors and the occasional straggler.
And it turns out these street vendors are selling... Moods.
Yeah.
So, happiness and, what was it, anger?
Anger, forget.
Yeah, somebody buys a forget. And it's almost like they're like drugs.
Well, yeah. Well, they are. As we find out later, they absolutely are.
And somebody uses one right in front of them to forget
her parents.
Her parents, because they were on the motorway, weren't they?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no, we can help you. We can find them. And she's like, what?
She performs that so well.
Yeah.
She performs that so well. It's scary how quickly she turns and is just suddenly really happy.
And the Doctor is like livid.
I think
at these people.
I think she's Pale Woman is the name of her character. I think that's
her.
Not entirely sure. Someone let me know if I'm wrong in the thing. But it's a great performance. Lucy Davenport, if it is indeed her.
I recognise that name.
Yeah, she's she's got a fair amount of filmography. Gangster Squad, Roe v. Wade, Dead Time Stories. She's been about.
Did you say Dead Time Stories?
Yes. So the Doctor threatens them all to close up because he's like, "This is gross." It's like, "What's the whole thing in the motorway?" And then Martha gets kidnapped. Martha gets kidnapped by Milo and Sheen, who snatch her away. Who are both on the motorway because it turns out there's a bunch of flying cars in queues. And
all going to the motorway in kind of like it's a better life.
They're driving to a better. They're trying to get to New York.
Yeah.
Essentially, and they're also absolutely fine with the fact that some of them have been there decades in their vehicles. Some have been there a few years. Some have been there a few months, and in that time have moved 10 miles. And you're like, what? You what? This motorway is underneath the city. It's sort of the way the network works. And it's very busy, and all they get is occasional traffic updates from Sally Calypso on the computer screens.
Yeah.
They've all got conditions within the vehicles that mean they can live in there, like chemical toilets. The thing recycles all waste into new food matter. They have a mass food storage
and replenishing fuel.
Yeah, and oxygen and water. It's just like, oh, this is depressing. But the reason Martha's been kidnapped by Milo and Sheen is because she misses living with a vampire and a werewolf and she wants more flatmate. No, that's not it. Is because they need 3 people to get into the fast lane, which is the lowest level of traffic that is allowed to move at a quicker pace. Not by much, but more than the layers above.
Yeah.
And we learn that the fast lane is rumoured to basically be where a lot of cars go missing. People disappear off of communications.
Why would you risk it?
Because it means getting to a new life better. She's pregnant, and remember they're like, we're gonna get to New York by the time she's 6. She'll be ready to start nursery, and it's like, oh my god, you're all fine with this. This is weird that you're all okay with it taking this long. And the Doctor sort of gets into a car with Valerie and Thomas Kincaid Brannigan, played by Jennifer Hennessy and Audrey O'Hannon, respectively, in full cat makeup. Because of course we're in this era of history, so we've got we've had cat nurses and cat nuns. So we've obviously got a cat dressed in aviator goggles and his wife and their newborn basket of kittens.
That I've always found that very disturbing.
It is odd, because they just look like cats. Because they are just cats. But do you know what?
You get to see David Tennant hold his kid.
It is 5 billion years into the future. I'm pretty sure genetically it's fine. He is a cat humanoid creature. Sure, whatever. Do you know what? Sure, whatever. Fine. David Tennant kittens. And they don't treat it as because the Doctor wouldn't bat an eyelid at that. He's just yeah, sure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's believable in it, but it is one of those if you think about it too much, it's wait, what? But yeah, outside of the vehicles is smoggy as hell, and people have been known to die from just standing in it for 20 minutes. So the Doctor,
head inflated.
Yeah, someone's head inflated. So the Doctor, kind of using their friends, what are they called? It's not got the surname here, but Brannigan calls them the something sisters, and it's they're a married couple. What are you doing? Which is flipping adorable because they're one of them is a car spotter.
Yeah.
Because her hobby while they're doing this is just writing down the cars she's seen and which ones have registered on the system as going to the lower levels and all this.
Because what else would you do?
So you've got them, and you've got like the posh fella on the lower level, and the guy who's like pale white, there's bubble wrap everywhere, and you've got like the neon K-pop stands and all this stuff. Like you've got all these different layers, and you're like, this is the set design and design teams have had a field day creating these, like, if someone was living in here for years, they'd make it as homely as they can, and they've got to reflect the personality of the individual drivers, and it's such a great idea. Like, it's depressing, but it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And when he just, like, straps a bandana around his mouth and keeps going through them, pretending to be an inspector, until he gets to the lowest level because he's trying to get to Martha. But before that, the Doctor gets snatched up by a teleport to the city above by Novice Haim.
Novice Haim.
From New Earth, who is alive and getting by, taking care of her patient. She refers to him as her master, which, in hindsight, I think is meant to be a clue.
Oh my god.
If you think about it.
More on that later.
She turns out the face of Bo and Novice Haim are still around, and are in fact the only living things on the surface of New York. Because the epidemic of people's addiction to the mood patches got to the point where society began to slow to a crawl, and then an infection that was present within it all spread, killed everyone within a matter of hours.
Yep.
And then the infection died out because it had nowhere else to grow or gestate. And the face of Bo somehow used whatever abilities he had to keep Novice Haim safe. And they're there in like the Capitol building. So the whole episode's set up to make you think that the Overcity is letting everyone in the traffic get used to this and maybe get killed by something down there, or die like waiting to arrive somewhere for some kind of sinister purpose.
Yeah.
Turns out, no, they're all trapped down there to keep them safe.
Yeah.
Because the system, the city, and the planet went into quarantine, which means everything shut down for a minimum of 100 years. So there's probably other continents and cities on New Earth that are okay by now, but because everyone's having to remain separated, no one's reached out to, nor has anyone from New York reached out to them to find out what's going on. Because there's no one in the city above to communicate with.
That's crazy.
It's so morbid and not at all terrifying, considering the fact we're in a third lockdown for a pandemic. But the point is, the face of Bo is just about holding on. He's giving his life force to keep things going, but they need the Doctor to help correct it. And that's when the Doctor's like, I'm not going to be able to find Martha, but I might be able to if I can save everybody. Yeah. Meanwhile, what's going on with Martha and their lot down below?
They're kind of told when they go down to the fast lane that they can go through the tunnels to get to, they're still going to be in traffic, but they're going to be closer to the entrance of New York.
Yeah. It'll take them less time. It's going to take them 6 years instead of like the 10, 20 that everyone else is taking.
Yeah. So they get to the barriers essentially to go through the tunnels, and they're closed, and they're like, what the heck? And they can hear sounds coming from outside their little ship, and it turns out that the rumours were true. There is something down there.
Mm-hmm.
And they react to sound, so them driving around trying to get out of there is making these things more agitated, trying to find them, so they end up cutting the power, don't they?
Yeah,
but they can only do that.
Martha cuts the power to make them not spottable, essentially. Submarine tactics.
Yeah.
But
sorry to Phil.
Yeah, but they only do it until they're going to run out of oxygen. It's like, right, we need to turn it back on and make a break for it.
Yeah. They come across another vehicle.
Yeah, who are getting attacked at that moment.
That's telling them...
With some great makeup.
Yeah.
Like the pale twins and the sort of the dog-looking woman.
The punk.
The punk dog, yeah. Which we said, like, is that a reference to the werewolf girl from Greatest Show in the Galaxy, maybe? Like, yeah, she was a punk and a dog. This is definitely a dog person. Like, the makeup's amazing for a creature we only see for, like, one scene.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. But, they unfortunately don't make it.
Yeah. What's down there?
the Doctor, whilst he is like moving from car to car before he gets taken by Novotaim, he gets to the very bottom line before you go to the fast lane, and he's in this posh person's car.
He's got a water cooler as a passenger
Bless.
in his passenger seat, which is quite a nice touch.
And
he's in a full suit and bowler hat.
He is.
In his car.
Because that's what all British people wear. Anyway.
Meanwhile, 3 layers up, there was nudists. But sure, whatever.
That's true. So he manages to clear the ventilation a little bit to give them all a bit of breathing air and see what's down there, because he can see movement but can't quite tell what it is. And he sees these monsters, and it is the Macra.
It's the goddamn Macra.
Which is a throwback to Paddy's time, isn't it?
The Macra Terror. There's no such thing as Macra!
Which we haven't watched yet.
Yeah, we talked about in that season review, because we had to, look at it as a piece of summon.
Yeah.
But
we've not watched
yet
the newly restored one.
Yet. We'll get to those eventually. Stick around. But, so...
And he tells the guy that he's with that they feed on...
gases and pollution. And that was the point, like, they used to, like...
Oh, my goodness!
Mind control populations and all that sort of stuff. And now, this is a couple more billion years since then. The ones that have survived have basically become this race of giant parasites getting bigger and bigger.
And that's what I'm being attacked by.
And more... Oh, God.
It's the dog, in case anybody was worried.
And more brainless as well. Like, they are just beasts now. Like, these aren't an intelligent species that are, like, ruling over a population. And they're just creatures in the dark. It's like reverse human evolution. Like, they've gone back to being just the Neanderthal version of a Macra, essentially. So this is also a sequel to the Macra Terror. And it's great because it could just be any old monster, but they've gone, do you know what monsters are visually really interesting? The Macra. Giant bloody crabs.
Sorry.
So let's do the Macra. Why not? There might be some Macra Terror purists out there who are annoyed that these aren't the Macra of old, but I think it's just a cool excuse, really. It's a cool excuse to go, oh, why not? There you go.
Yeah.
So they managed to get everything right and get everyone out of the highway, and then the Face of Bo imparts the prophesied last words to a traveller from New Earth.
Excuse
me. And the Doctor makes a point of being like, no, don't do that, because if he does that, it means he's dying. He's like, no, you're going to hold on, keep going. And he's really kind of like casual and bedside mannery about it all. And the Face of Bo makes points like, we're the last of our kind, old friend, but you are not alone. And then he passes away, leaving the Doctor with the most kind of, wait, what? Expression on his face.
Yeah.
And as they're leaving, and they find that the mood patch people have closed up, Martha, grills him on it, and he's like, it's probably nothing. She just pulls up a chair and she's like, right, come on. He's like, are you staying here? She's like, yeah, until you tell me what's going on. Like, who are you? Where are you from?
Yeah.
Be honest. Because at the beginning of the story, he describes Gallifrey, and it's the first time we really get a description of what it's like. For new viewers, this is like your first glimpse as to what the home world he's left behind was.
Yeah.
And he doesn't tell her it's gone. And then at the end, when she confronts him, he's like, he makes a point of saying, like, because the guilt he feels in this story, and the reason why he wants to save her is because the last thing I told her was a lie, which was like, oh, I'm from here, and it's great. And now that she confronts him, and he's like, right, it's gone. I lied because it meant that, like, for a minute I could pretend they were still around. Mm. And he describes the citadel of Gallifrey and the orange grass and the twin suns, and it's like Tatooine. And it's just this gorgeous scene, and Tennant is, like, it's the Doctor's finally kind of coming to terms with the, yeah, no, it is. Pretending for a minute was nice, but it's not right, and he's just broken. But it's great because it's the first kind of actual moment of bonding the two of them have.
Yeah.
And it happens because Martha's like, right, stop BSing, talk to me. Again, just reasserting that the character is absolutely more than a match for him.
Yeah.
And and meaning
Golly.
that going forward, they're going forward on a more level playing field. So, yeah. Gridlock's really good.
Really good.
From the hymn that they all sing to each other and the thing that like fills the motorway, like you can all hear it. You can hear it everywhere because everyone's singing, and it's this sort of song of peace and hope. From the bit where the Doctor sort of makes Brannigan and I think it's the Bellini sisters or something like that, making them realise that, have you ever seen a police car? Ever?
An ambulance?
Have you ever seen an ambulance? And you can see them all just kind of, it's like that unspoken thing, and he says that you don't say anything because you know there's something wrong. And the longer you leave it, the quicker it is to forget and ignore it. And you just realise that like everyone who's in Gridlock is aware that this is not right.
Yeah.
There is something wrong, but no one's ready to confront it.
Yeah.
It's so disturbing. Like, that's brilliant. Face of Bo, it's great to see again, and Novice Haim, played by Anna Hope, who does a wonderful job. This is the last appearance of the character in the show. Before you write it in the comments, yes, I know about the Lockdown Who short film. It is wonderful. I think I've shown you that one, haven't I?
Which one?
There's one of the Lockdown Who extras from 2020.
With Novice Haim.
There's Novice Haim basically telling a story of like her final weeks and everything, and then the Doctor comes to pay his respects, and it sort of suggests that it's during his farewell tour. And it's bloody wonderful.
And she's affected so many people's lives, and she's
like, she's gone on to she essentially, because like when they have a big hug and then he pushes her back, he's like, wait, no, hang on, because it's like, you're part of an organisation who were creating clones and killing them, and she's like, no, you don't understand. Like I've denounced all that. I've been doing this since, and he's really sort of shady about it. But by the end of this, you can tell that he's like, no, you're doing the right thing, and he leaves her in charge of helping sort of the cleanup and figuring out how society's going to go on, because she, of course, can tell everyone what happened on the surface. I think Gridlock's really good.
Really, really good.
And I think this is a really good string of episodes to open the season with.
Yeah.
What about you lot? You like it? Do you not like it? You like what you see? Huh? Wondering why I'm not going to carry an action figure? Or a Brannigan? Because I don't own them! But they did make them. I've got a macro, though. It's over there! Look, here it comes! Why, when you do a crab claw, every time do you make the noise of Krabby from Pokemon?
Because that's the noise that crabs make. That's
Is
why.
it? When you've got rock pools in Cornwall and they walk around going...
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Right?
Just for that, you can hit the record button. Let us know in the comments down below if y'all liketh these episodes. And did you have the same reservations about Martha when you first watched this as Lucy did? Or are you like, what's wrong with you?
You said my name!
Martha.
I'm not Chris.
Martha.
Martha.
I know! We'll be back next time with Spider-Man of 2012. Don't lick a Jadoon. What are you doing? Don't lick the Jadoon!
Bye! Or not.